Roles of a denizen. A content creator is a user that creates posts and is rewarded based on the quality of their content. A content evaluator is a user that helps assess the quality of content and enforces community standards. The evaluator is effectively taking part in a marketplace to curate content and is rewarded for early evaluation. A content consumer is a user that wishes to find and consume the most valuable content in a given subject area or within a community. A lair owner is a person holding tokenized ownership of all or part of a community lair. Owners are rewarded with a portion of all mining activity happening within their lair. Owners are incentivized to build the best community of content creators and evaluators.
Hello everyone, welcome to Super Happy Dragon Lucky episode 3E. This is the 63rd episode. We have actually more DIN videos and commercials coming soon. So today only, during the show, we have we're going to give away a DIN logo shirt, and you can choose between the first or the second, whether it says DIN at the bottom or not. The code is SHDL 3E DIN-93. All right, so get in there and get that. First in gets it. Also, so today we're going to walk through the white paper, and during that walkthrough, we're hoping that you guys can ask questions, and we'll do an AMA throughout the whole thing. Ideally, it'll be about which section we're on, but if there are any that are lingering questions or we didn't address, then we'll hit them at the end. So start asking those right away, and we'll get everything answered for you. We wanted to remind everyone to follow the accounts, especially the Twitter accounts, Dragonchain Gang, Real Denizens, and Jojo Row. Because as we go forward, basically everything in particular that will be about this project and about the white paper will be handled on the Real Denizens account. And Dragonchain, of course, will be, we have more followers there, so it'll be promoting a lot of it. And you should follow Jojo Row because of all the witty humor. Let's see here. This week, so we are going to do a quick number go up, brought to you by FOMO Hunt. So it's a segment where we try to help the people on crypto Twitter deal with their incessant need to speculate on various numbers, I should say, numbers and colors. That one way or another, this week is Bitcoin. It's a fitting week to do Bitcoin. So last week, number go up, and the analyst forecast for this coming week is number go up. Surprise. Thank you, FOMO Hunt, for that. And let's see here. We also have, before we get started with the white paper, a DIN update. So a new release just went out to the web application 1.6.4. You can see it on DIN. Basically, there's a notification adjustment. We allow a full logout. It was a partial logout before for various reasons, but they cleaned up some stuff. There's a bug fix, UI bug fix for video, and probably the most important thing was the ability to view the data that you are replying to. That was brought up by a community member, I think, and it was a good point made. That should be fixed now. I just played with it this morning. It looks pretty nice. Okay, so those are all the updates. Now we're going to do the DIN white paper walkthrough. Okay, so we just released this. It is still draft. It is version 0.93, and it's out there. I believe in the video description. You should be able to find a link to help us to provide feedback. So do look at it, do review it. I'm going to, of course, walk through it today. I'm going to try as much as possible not to just read every word in it. So I'm going to try to paraphrase, but also try to get to some of the meaning behind what's in there, and ask questions. So here we go. DIN white paper. Hope you like the cover page. We've had various comments. All right, so this is the point of DIN is about history, really. It's about tracking and putting this content on chain so that in the future you can see that this was actually what was said, that this is the unchanged from its original state, right? And that's a big piece of it, and it applies to censorship, anti-censorship. It applies to a lot of other philosophical goals that we had. So the problem given here, and this is relatively well stated. We tried to keep it concise though, because there are a lot of problems that we're trying to solve. But it is that the internet's broken. Community forums, social media platforms are constantly struggling against spam, fraud, trolls, censorship, fake news. And the funny thing is, it's actually not really the social platforms that are struggling. It is the users of the social platforms that are struggling, right? So if you have a brand, or you have a project, or you have just your own stuff, you're constantly fighting against this. Those same central social platforms decide what's true and what's not, what people see and what they don't, what is trending, what is not. You think Twitter, you think Facebook, you think any of the big platforms. They have a lot of things they're doing, and supposedly they're algorithms. They try to say that they're applying AI, but even in the cases where they really are using AI, it's still tuned by a human to do what it's doing. The largest social media and messaging apps also exploit us, monetize our personal info. This is known. Advertisers and social media have no incentive to change that business model. It's all about, and whether you're talking about news sites, whether you're talking about Facebook, Twitter, it is all about getting eyeballs onto an ad. So you let people post what they do, you tune stuff around, and you sell more ads. And a lot of it is sometimes they're selling your actual data, Facebook's case, but a lot of times it's just using that data to place ads around you, and for your friends. So these platforms are geared entirely towards advertising instead of providing the best content, instead of curating, finding the best content, right? So community management and curation of content, there's always this diametrically opposed forces: freedom, exclusion, censorship. So we're trying to focus on those problems. So our primary goal in the end, and we're going to get through a lot of stuff of what we would call sausage making. This is you'll see some of the ugly bits of where the complexity for the economy happens and everything else. But do know that this is not what we would sell the platform to a normal user with, right? That everything in the end is about quality content. So we've created a marketplace with modeled scarcity. We'll show you why in a while here. With decentralized governance to incentivize good behavior and contribution of valuable content for a community. That marketplace will incentivize denizens. People on the platform are denizens by awarding creation of valuable content as evaluated by a community. Very important and the most obvious first thing. Second, we're also incentivizing the evaluation or curation of quality content in a competitive market. So the sooner you can find good quality stuff and help the rest of the layer, the community, see it, the more you will be rewarded. And three, management and ownership of individual communities. Okay, so that's ownership of a layer. If you think of it as if it were Reddit, it would be a subreddit. It's a community group, a group that could be public or private. It could be big or small. It could be technical or set for normal people. And we also have a risk-based advertising alternative. This is interesting for a number of ways because we had to balance this really well, so we don't end up with ads all over the place and the same broken internet that's everywhere else. So, we call it boosted posts, and it allows for the exploration of a better business model in social media without sacrificing healthy business growth. So a business can place a boosted post, and if it's well received, they can get back the large portion of their ad spend. The more engagement their post gets, the less they pay, right? It's an interesting thing because, and we'll get into it later, the actual details of it, but the main point is we think that really good ads aren't actually ads. They're just content, right? Or you could look at it the other way, that content is the best possible advertisement. So then we add in our reputation system that allows even more flexibility for owners and managers of layers to handle privileges for new users. We'll kind of show how that works in a later section. Layers can fine-tune their own reputation system individually to create an experience that's most suitable for their access to their layer and what you can do in the layer. So it's the goal of Den to provide the best content to the consumer earlier than on any other platform. That's the main goal, right? In the end, everything else is geared to that. Okay. So core principles. What is a denizen? When we were looking for a Twitter handle, actually, that's what caused us to pull this up. But a denizen is literally an inhabitant or occupant of a space. So it could be an animal or plant, but there are a whole bunch of other details around that. But very simply, that's what we call people on the platform. So we're going to cover, let's see here, the rewards and content evaluation marketplace. So Den rewards creation and evaluation of quality content within communities. Rewarding content creation is based upon the evaluation within those communities. So early evaluation of content that is later determined to be of high quality will push that content to the top for consumption of the people who don't care about the markets or any of the rest of it. They just want to see the good content. Scarcity is very important in a system because all actions have a modeled scarcity. That's voting, posting, replying, the creation of layers, the creation of posts with media in them. And this is to limit abuse and improve the quality of content. That is, it makes you make a choice. You only have so many votes. Where do you put them? You only have so much energy. Do you post? Do you vote? What do you do today? We also then have community layer ownership, and basically a layer is a community in Den. It's kind of like a subreddit, and they are owned just like other platforms, but in this case, the ownership is tokenized and shareable by multiple individuals. And this is so that if you have a brand, you can actually give some ownership of your brand to your best community members. And they can then help admin your layer. They can help you create a better layer. The ownership is provable with an ERC 721. We do say or similar NFT. I mean, the first rollout is going to be a standard token contract on Ethereum. And layer ownership gives you the right to admin that layer, and so on. But the most important piece is because it's a tokenized partial ownership, that all rewards that are mined for that layer will be split proportionally amongst the tokenized owners of that layer. So it's a very interesting system that directly drives the owners of the layer to try to build a better layer, whether that's to try to bring people in that will produce content, or whether it's them just managing the culture of the layer better. It's very important. We also have a reputation system. So we have a couple of them coming, but the main one is a very universal approach that basically, and we'll show the formula later how we calculate a reputation, but it lets that layer limit the types of actions that a user can take within that layer based upon the reputation. So a post, reply, adding an image or video can be set based upon or opened or closed based upon the user's reputation. And it's interesting too because the obvious problem is, how do you assign a reputation to someone who just subscribed to your layer? Well, we give you two sets of numbers on that you can set the site-wide requirements versus the layer requirements. So once someone gets an established reputation within your layer, they will hit the thresholds that you've set for the people that are established. And for anyone else that's new, it totally depends upon their site-wide reputation, which is very simple. But it's almost like go and post in a very general area first before you come into my layer, because I want to make sure that you're not a troll or whatever else. It's really interesting, and this was a really good solution. And there is, I should say, scarcity along with in the way that even the reputation system works. Blocking is next. So everybody knows what blocking is. You can block people on social media. In Den, you can block multiple people in every layer, and let's say it's 10%, and there are set numbers right now, but we're going to have, that we're waiting a couple of updates, but one way or another, you only get so many blocks for every layer, and they're tokenized. They're not tokens. They're not tradable or anything like that, but you can only block so many people in each layer based upon the layer size and things like this. And when you block another person, you no longer see content from them. So let's say someone is just annoying you. They could be a troll. They could just be somebody who's annoying. Doesn't matter. You block them. You don't see their stuff anymore. You will see, posts that are kind of hidden that you can, if you need to look at, if somebody else replied to them, things like that. But the beauty is, if enough people block that same person from that layer, the blocked person is automatically banned. So you don't have as much issue with the cost of moderation. So it's really interesting, and it's very organic. It feels very natural when you're doing this, and it also keeps you from just blocking everyone, right? If you use up all of your blocking tokens, and you realize, oh man, I really need to block Joe. He's so annoying. You'll have to unblock someone else, right? It's a real scarcity. Then we get into the details of the alternative advertisement system. So, again, it's our philosophical belief that any sufficiently targeted advertisement will be seen as quality content by its viewers. The perfect advertisement is not an advertisement. The perfect advertisement is actually content that I want to see, right? So Den provides a system to incentivize this for communities, within communities, where we say that the advertiser, the would-be advertiser, the person who boosts a post, can actually get back a large portion, minus a fee of their cost, if the content is well received. And it's an interesting piece because it's rewarding advertisers for providing better ads to you. So if the ads are sufficiently welcomed, this is actually good info, you voted up, they get more of their money back. If they throw something up that's horrible, it very quickly drops down out of view. You might have a few people that evaluate it, and pretty quickly it'll be out of view, and doesn't bother anyone, and then they lose potentially all of their money, depending on how bad it is. So the way it works, the advertiser, the would-be advertiser, posts within a layer their content, and they boost their own post by applying matter from their account. So it could be matter that they've mined already. People in the beta have mined matter already. It could be matter that they buy from somewhere else. And they apply it. So it temporarily increases the visibility of the post, as if a high amount of energy was applied. Which you can't vote on your own posts, so this is a way to flip that. If the post is valuable to the layer and it is upvoted, it remains boosted and visible. Just like if it was content that I didn't boost and people voted up, it remains more visible in the trending streams. So if it's inappropriate and it's deemed bad content by the community, it'll be downvoted and quickly dropped from view. The denizen posting the content is subject to blocking and banning, just like anyone else posting bad or inappropriate content. So it fits in, and it's very naturally set and aligned, where one matter equals one energy, so on, so on. It makes it fair, yet gives an interesting mechanism to make things more visible, right? And there are more aspects as well that are powerful, which when we get into the formulas, you'll see it. Another thing is the ability to edit a post or reply. And it is just that, with the difference being that an edited post has a full history viewable, and viewable with proof for all of the separate changes. We'll get into the formula of how much that costs and how we do it later, because there's scarcity applied there too. Okay, so platform overview. A layer is a topic or community-oriented room that can be owned by one or more individuals. Within a layer, content creators can create posts and replies, interact with posts by upvoting and downvoting. A layer can be expected to create its own guidelines and culture, and one way or another, that's what decides. It's basically the community that is subscribed and that actually participates that sets the culture and of that community. And the admins can ban people, but generally it is a culture that is set very naturally. Okay, the layer ownership, as we talked about before, is fractionalized into non-fungible tokens called lot, and we'll have the description below. Okay, denizen roles. So if you saw the commercial at the beginning of the show here, we went over to roles. We have the content creator, very important role, obviously, who create posts and are rewarded based entirely upon the quality of the content. And when people say, well, how do you determine that, and how do you keep it from being differing opinions and everything else, it's because we broke things down into the layers. That makes it possible for each layer to determine on their own which content is most valuable. The content, and they are, by the way, competing. So you're competing within a layer, you're competing across layers, the layers themselves are competing, and the evaluators are competing. It's a really interesting thing. So the content evaluator are denizens that help assess the quality of content and help enforce community standards. Downvote something you don't like, upvote a lot, something that you think is really good content, or that you think is appropriate for the culture of that community. And it's interesting too, we'll get into it, that the actual mechanism means you don't actually have to believe it. You don't have to care about that content. You have to just be the best evaluator of what the rest of that community actually wants to see. So it literally is a curation marketplace. Then we have layer owner and community manager, that the owner, whole or partial, of a layer. Layer owners are rewarded with a portion of all mining activity happening within their layer. Owners are incentivized to build the best communities. And this is interesting too, because we have a lot of things that we're going to be building out into this area, where you'll be able to proxy ownership, so you can have moderators without giving them lot, things like that. But right now is, that we have a whole bunch of layers that are owned by communities. That the people came in through a process that we used to call layer creation process, and we'll talk about how that works later. But it's interesting because you have multiple owners, which drives them even to compete and to try to bring in better content. But then you also have business layers where, like say, Den has one, Dragonchain has one. Dragonchain has some private ones, and we even have some brands that Satoshi Shawn and Crow that have branded community layers where they own them entirely, right? They might spread them with community members, but that's up to them. But there are the two angles there. We have a new one here that this is not implemented, but it will, we expect it to roll out soon, especially when we start advertising how some of this works. And that is an engagement driver. That it's kind of the counterpoint to the boosting system, where instead of boosting inside of Den, inside of a layer, you're boosting on other networks. So what we're going to do is basically say you can apply Matter to boost a post, and anytime someone shares that post, we actually get the referral code, so we know who boosted it, we know who actually got someone to click on their link, and they will share in that boosting, the boosted Matter, right? So one way or another, it's just another way to drive more eyeballs into content without advertising in Den even. And then the most important rule of all the rules, which is the content consumer. That is someone who just wants to read or view the content that is created in Den. And it is for this role that all of the complexity that you'll see soon is directed towards. So everything else, all of the competition, all the marketplace activity that we're going to be talking about inside of the system is all intended to get the best content for these readers. Okay, so now we get into the more complex stuff, the token economy. All right, the first token, Matter. You've seen the slogan, truth matters, history matters. Basically, it is all about this, that the primary token in the entire economy is Matter. Okay, total supply 433, 494, 437. It's a prime Fibonacci. Don't ask. It's a Dragonchain thing. Precision 18. It will be an ERC20 on Ethereum. So the purpose and utility, primary utility token within Den. It is a utility token. It controls the amount of energy created every hour. And next up, we're going to talk about what energy is. It is your primary source of scarcity for doing things in the system. Okay, so it effectively gates or throttles the pace of a denizen or the momentum of their participation. So it keeps people from coming in and posting spam all over the place as a new user without understanding what the layers cultures are, so on. Matter is created daily on the basis of valued content, and it's rewarded to content creators, content evaluators, and the layer owners, and all the roles through a community-centered evaluation process. Okay, so Matter may be used to boost any posts as an alternative to advertising. Matter may also be used to purchase lore in the system, described below, in order to purchase or create new layers. Okay, all right. So the distribution method is Matter. Matter is only created in the mining process, and that mining is based upon the evaluation and the quality of content that has happened in the community layers. So we only produce 1,000 Matter every 24 hours, right? And this amount will last 1,300 years. And we actually looked at whether we should be doing halving or anything else, and we decided let's just go with a really, really scarce token that, how do I say this, that as we gain adoption, it's a little less exponential in scarcity. It is a little bit easier to determine how, it's very hard to say if we had a halving, would we do it every year, every 6 months, every 4 years? It's a very hard thing to determine. So it's much easier to say it's kind of tuned scarcity along with the adoption curve. So as we gain a lot of adoption, that 1,000 Matter will be extremely scarce. Okay, so Some matter is collected as fees by the DEN entity and may be sold to cover operational costs, okay? And the DEN entity is, by the way, separate from Dragonchain. That should be well stated. We'll get into more of that later and how that works and everything else, okay? So the mining period, 24 hours. We actually did a beta for a while where we had a 21-hour mining period because it's Fibonacci and because then the zero date would move around the Earth every mining cycle, but we decided to go to 24 hours just to keep everything simpler. It was too much to track. So, and we'll, by the way, we will get into how decisions that were made in beta will be made when we're out of beta, right? So it's very interesting decentralized governance as well, okay? So, proportional shares of the period's created matter. That's a pretty interesting thing. Okay, so hybrid mining process. To anybody who knows how Dragonchain works, I mean, it's a hybrid platform. So what we philosophically say is that decentralization should be used where it's most needed. That not everything has to be decentralized. In fact, there are different angles in decentralization that it might not even be the mining process. Decentralization of the user's activity within the system is one, but the primary is decentralization of proof. And in some cases, with the tokens, obviously, we use, best of breed, best practices, Ethereum tokens to decentralize the tokens themselves, right? And that's the same reason we did it with Dragonchain, where it is basically that we have, how do I want to say this, that we can leverage all of the existing ecosystem that Ethereum gives us. There are hardware wallets, and there are block explorers, and there are, multi-sig functionality, things like that is already all there, very well tested. And other than the fact that it's sometimes very expensive, occasionally, depending on what's going on in the Ethereum world, it's a really, really good system. So matter mining is a hybrid process where we have matter and lore, which we'll get into later as well, on Ethereum as well as on the platform itself, on DEN. And using Dragonchain, we interoperate with the Ethereum network to cause the mining to happen every day on Ethereum, where 1,000 matter are minted every 24 hours, and then we map that and distribute those within DEN, where they can be used or withdrawn or whatever needs to happen. So it's very important to understand that, but at the same time, for a normie, for someone who's just using the system, who at least at the very beginning doesn't care at all about the tokens, it's a very simple thing for them. It's in the console. They're just points, right? So they're using their points for what they're using them for. It's utility. Only when they realize, oh, I want to pull these out to do something else with them, or to tip somebody, or do whatever you would do with crypto, that you can pull them out. And I guess the other big one would be to hold them in a hardware wallet, cold storage, safety, security. And there are fees and so on. So okay, we'll get now. This is where we get into some of the important stuff. So content and value evaluation consensus. Okay, so in order to capture the best consensus and prevent manipulation of the content evaluation, because you can imagine there are a million ways you can game a system, and we found that a very, well, it was a hole that was there, was when someone had a brother, let's say, and they post content, and their brother upvotes the content, and then they upvote a reply, and back and forth. So we've created this consensus energy adjustment, probably the simplest way to describe it, where based upon the number of people who weigh in, ignoring how they weigh in, how many people weighed in, that becomes a factor for how valuable that energy is applied. And what it does is it means, I guess I'll explain the actual detail. This CCT number right here, which is the community consensus threshold, is currently set at 13. We did that for simplicity to test it out in beta and where it didn't have to vary between the layers. In the future, we do believe that that's going to be something tuned to active users within a layer. So it'll be, it'll vary based upon the size of the layer and how many people are typically participating. Because you might have 1,000 subscribers, but only 150 are actually active. That it'll be something tuned to that number. It might not be that number, but what we do is we take the unique upvotes and the unique downvotes. So the number of unique voters, the people, how many people have weighed in. I don't care how much energy they applied. I just want to know how many there were over this number 13. So and limit to 1. So basically max 1. That if you get 13 people weighing in, then we treat energy pure. If you get less than 13 weighing in, let's say only one person votes on your post, let's say they vote 5,000 energy. It's a lot of energy to throw onto a single post. They really like it. The person who's evaluating is actually making that post show up for everyone else faster and putting it into some level of trending compared to all the other items. But they're risking the fact that no one else agrees. So if no one else weighs in that community, then they get 1/13 of the value of energy they put in applied to the matter mining, right? So in the end, it ends up, you want to vote high on the things that everyone else is going to really say, yes, we should vote on that. And even if they only vote 1, if you have 12 people vote 1 and you vote 5,000, then that 5,012 votes are energy applied for mining, right? So really interesting stuff, and we apply this in a lot of places, okay? So the adjusted energy for any post is that consensus adjustment times the total energy up minus the total energy down, right? So, and it's interesting because you could vote something down to 0 if you really hate it, if you think it's horrible. But it's a competition then because you're throwing away energy if you're wrong. Let's see here. Then we get into mind to matter. All content upvotes are counted, and I should say also, all votes. I mean, all posts, replies, and votes are on chain. So everything is provable from when it happened. That the system will throw it on chain, and later all of this will be available in reports. Right now it's it's all running on the back end, but proportional amount of the 1,000 matter mining reward is awarded to each participant based upon each citizen's total adjusted energy, right? So whether you are owner of a layer, whether you are the writer of the post, whether you're the writer of a reply, or the evaluator themselves, all of that comes together to give you an adjusted energy, which is thrown into the pot, and you get a proportional amount of that 1,000 matter every day. Okay, so matter Y here is the user matter payout for a period. It's the total adjusted energy over the total energy for that period, right? So it's basic, pretty simple way to evaluate how much matter you would get. There's a lot in it, but then we get into the evaluator incentive matter mining, and this one's a little more complex. It is the trending payout pool, and we'll show you in a minute here. We actually show you how much energy goes into that pool for every action, and this is how we reward the evaluators. Okay, so we take the top 21 posts for each period, okay, and 10% of the energy spent creating posts and 5% of all their actions are placed into this pool. Okay, so we reward the evaluators of the top 21 trending content items. And that number, by the way, there is a footnote here. That number will likely increase. Once we know scalability and everything else. We set it at 21 because we knew that it would happen. If you vote up and down, Enrique Peroncini, if you vote up and down, they can cancel each other out. You'd end up being counted as a single voter, as a unique voter, so the consensus would be helped. But if you're canceling yourself out to 0, you're saying, oh shoot, I actually, when I voted this 5 up, I read it and I was like, it's not really worth 5. I'm going to say 0. But so you cancel it out, and you won't likely get a reward for that, right? But everything else is thrown into the formulas. It wouldn't be treated any differently. So this is interesting. And I'm trying to think if I want to explain this. I'll try to explain it in detail how we're doing this. This is probably one of the most complex parts of how we are mining matter. That if you were an evaluator, if you voted at all on a post that is in the top 21 posts for that period, that we take all 21 of those posts and we determine from the pool, from the trending pool that we have energy, how much energy does each post get? And they are, based upon adjusted energy, going to get a proportional amount. So you might have the top post getting 40% of that pool, and then 60% goes to the other 20 posts, right? So but let's say each one of those posts, though, uses this formula to calculate their proportion of the total pool, okay? So matter P21 is matter committed to the evaluators. This isn't to the trending item because they're already getting matter based upon their content, right? This is for the evaluators of the trending item. That we take the number of energy upvotes for each trending item times, again, that same adjusted formula. So where it's based on how out of 13 people, how many evaluated it, over the total adjusted energy of all trending items, right? Times the trending pool matter for the period, right? So it's simple, and it's well, if you ignore the fact that this consensus item is in here, it's relatively simple to determine how much matter or how much matter is applied to each post. Then we go down here and we say for every evaluator of every trending item. So say you were evaluator on the top trending post and the 5th highest trending post. So it's going to calculate this for both of those posts. And we're basically saying, because you might have voted twice in the past 7 days on how do I say this, on a given item, you say you voted on day 1. Let's say you voted in hour 1 and you voted in hour 300. Okay, it's 300 within 7 days, I think it is. I don't know. Either way, that you voted early and late. That we take the average number of hours for all of your votes, or for your first and last vote. It's very simple. And with that, we give you an award based upon the energy voted by you times that average hours. So if, let's say you only voted in hour 1, that it was, let's say it was 80 hours ago, 4 days ago, that's a really good weighting system, because the earlier you vote, the more of a multiplier you get to compete with everyone else. So you want to vote as soon as possible. You want to look. In fact, you probably want to follow. If you're really wanting to game this system, you're going to want to follow not the trending tab, but you're going to want to look at the chronological. You want to, in any layer you're in, you want to see, okay, what's new, what's new, what's new. That's good content, that's bad content. You either vote it down or ignore it, or you vote it up. And we take the that time duration times the amount of energy you put on it, times the amount applied for that post, okay? And that gives you your proportion, weighted proportion of that post's matter, which is really interesting because, we're just saying the earlier and the more consensus you get, the more you're going to be rewarded. And there's actually another boost that you're going to see in a little bit here that we also throw into that trending pool, which is any lost revenue from a boosted post will also go into this trending pool. So basically, if you're an evaluator on certain days, you might get a decent amount of energy, of matter mined. Okay, now we get into how energy is split on different actions. What percentage goes to the various actors. Okay, so let's say it's an upvote action. Okay, and let's see here. How do I want to describe this? For an upvote action, 80% of it goes directly to the content. If it's a post or reply. Okay. Keep this question up. I'll get through this section and answer the question. The post itself, if you're voting on a reply or later a cross post, let's say I vote on a reply to your post, you'll get 5% of that. So 80% would go to the reply, 5% would go to the post. In both cases, 5% goes to the layer, 5% goes to DIN, and 5% goes to that trending payout pool for the evaluators. Okay. So Brian asks, is there any issues you might think might come up once the token model is released? Yes. And what will you want to see not happening? O guess is the question. Zero guess is the. I'm not sure what that means, but one or another, yes, we have some governance, some governance structure that we'll get to at the end of the document that answers a lot of those questions, because we know, we've already seen it in beta. We know that certain things will be attacked and broken, and we have to have ways to fix them, and we don't want a fully centralized system. So we'll describe how that works in a little bit. Next up, so a post action. All right. So when you create a post, and there's a fixed cost for a post, which we'll show a little bit later, 80% of that energy will go to the layer, towards mining. 10% of it will go to DIN, and 10% will go to the trending payout pool. For a reply action, 80% of reply action energy goes to the post or the reply to which you are replying. So you're actually, when you spend that money, when you spend that energy to reply to something, 80% of it goes to whoever you are replying to in that content. 5% goes to the post, if there is a post above. 5% goes to the layer. 5% goes to DIN, and 5% goes to the trending payout pool. And something that you have to understand as well is that if it is a reply, 80% goes to the reply that you are replying to. 5% goes to the post above, no matter how deep in the thread you are. But if you are replying to a post, then 85% goes to that post. Okay. It's hard to describe in a table. Downvote actions, negative 80% goes directly to the post or reply. Okay, to consider in mining. So you're basically hurting the chances of that post or reply by it's basically a direct cancellation to an upvote. However, the post, layer, DIN, and trending payout do not suffer. That is, we want to still provide a forum for people to disagree and to say things that might be inappropriate in the community, even if they do cost them. Yet a post does not suffer if someone replies, if a troll replies under the post. The post actually still gets 5% of the negative energy applied for matter creation in the positive. So does the post, so does Den, so does the trending payout pool. Okay? All right. So now we get into the advertising alternative system, which we added. Well, you know the reasons. It's an interesting thing, and we know that businesses will have a desire to send something in, and they literally, you could come in without using the boost system and just post really good content, and you'll get upvoted. And frankly, that's probably the ideal, and it's the ideal for the would-be advertiser, and it's the ideal situation for the layer community and the readers of content. And if it's really crappy and it literally is spam, you'll probably get blocked. You'll definitely get downvoted and so on. You're losing the scarcity that you have, and you're not gaining anything in return, right? So this boosting system is in there, and we've already talked about advertising and targeted content-based advertising. So we won't support traditional advertising in the form of commercial space on the site or generally featured content. There are some ideas that we might use it for people who aren't logged in to incentivize them to log in, but we're not doing that now, and we might not do that. But instead, we have a market risk-based system to allow advertisers to boost within a layer. So a community member of a layer can boost their own post. Post is temporarily boosted in a trending view by mapping the matter to energy for direct comparison to all their posts. So if I boost something by 100 matter, and someone else in the community comes in and they boost a different post by 500 matter, or sorry, they don't boost it, they just vote it up by 500 energy, they will outrank me in trending, right? And in trending, depending upon if you're in the layer itself, that's a simple thing. If you're across, if you're in the global view, trending view, then you're seeing everything that you've subscribed to. It might not even show up top page. So you're going to want to post a lot of matter to it to push it up there. And there are a couple, and you look at the formula, there are a couple of interesting things that we do to give them a slight different boost, but it's risky. If anybody starts downvoting it, they're going to it's going to drop out of view, number one, and they're not going to get their advertising dollars back, right? So we have two levels of incentives there, both the viewing itself. You can't just pay to get something out there. It has to be well evaluated still. But we give the ability to offer it up to people. Please evaluate this content. All right. So there's a fee. So upfront, 15% fee. We'll get into it here. 10% will go to Den. So 10% of any matter boosted post goes to Den. 5% goes to whichever layer that is posted in. In the event of a poorly received post, a portion of the committed matter is lost and goes to the trending pool to award content evaluators across the whole system. It's a very interesting thing, and we specifically set the upfront fees so that neither Den nor the layer themselves are incentivized to unnecessarily downvote otherwise good content. Okay, that's important. So we basically take that 85% of the remaining matter, times the matter committed, 85% of the committed matter, and multiply that by the aforementioned consensus formula, which is still soon tuned to do a number 13 right now, to say you have to get good consensus on this to get this money back, and that the number of upvotes over the number of the number of unique upvoters over the total number of unique voters. So you have the proportion, 85% of the matter you committed times the number of users that upvoted your posts, or percentage of users that upvoted your posts, times this consensus adjustment. So it has to be well received for real in that community, and you get back everything minus the 15%, right? Super important. Okay, now we get into, so that was all matter. That was the matter section. That's the biggest section. So look at this. We're almost, we're only 55 minutes, only 55 minutes. That went fast. We're 3/4 of the way through. All right, so next up is energy. So total supply is unlimited. This is not a tradable token. This is not something that you can take outside a den. This is a points system to throttle activity, basically, on purpose, to provide scarcity. Yet, we didn't want to use matter to vote, as, let's say matter became too valuable, or there's not enough of it. So how would we ever charge on a consistent, stable basis that a vote is one energy? Because let's say we have millions of users, that it's really hard to get matter, that you get the 24 energy every day plus, and we'll get into the mining bits, but it's or how we'll get into the generation of energy and how we actually calculate that. We wanted something that can be stable forever, that we can adjust to matter, right? So that is energy, and it's used inside the system to execute actions, post content, reply, vote, do any number of other things, and everything has a stable price in energy. So a vote is always one energy, and you can vote as much energy as you want on a single post, and it's how we stretch the evaluation. Instead of just having one up or one down, we let you say, I'm going to put 1,000 energy on that post because I really think it's important to this community. A reply costs 2 energy. A reply with an image costs 3 energy. A post costs 5 energy, and a post with an image costs 8 energy. And these can be tuned, and we'll get into the governance process later. Okay. And an edit. An edit is the one that's hardest to explain, but you can edit a post or reply. Okay. If it's your post or reply, it is free for the owners of a layer. We found that if it's a community and it's typically like announcements or anything else, that it pretty much needed to be set up so that the layer owners can edit their own posts. With his, it's a good extra advantage to owning a layer. For anyone else, it's free for the first 15 minutes. So if you have typos, you have other things, you can edit it. If you have multiple typos or grammar things, it's always like 2 or 3 edits, right? However, every edit is counted, and then this formula is enacted after those 15 minutes. So the cost of an edit is the hours since creation times the count of edits that have already happened times the original cost of energy for whatever the thing is, divided by 2. So it's basically, if it was a let's say a reply, that's going to be 1 times I've already made 3 edits times it was 100 hours ago. It's a lot of energy, right? So it kind of freezes it, because after the first 15 minutes, depending if you've made a lot of edits, it becomes pretty expensive pretty fast. So you aren't going to likely have people going back and editing really old posts, unless there's a layer owner, but then the history's maintained, right? Okay. How is energy created, right? So matter held in your den account will generate energy every hour up to a cap. Okay, we'll show you the formula in a minute. New denizens, people who just signed up for an account, will start with 24 energy. Day 1, boom, you have 24 energy. Every denizen generates 1 energy per hour to replace that 24. Okay, plus 1/24th energy per hour for every matter that they have. And the cap is the amount of matter you have in your balance plus 24. So if you have zero matter, it's still, you get 24 energy, okay? But if you have 1 matter, then you're going to generate a 24th of energy every hour until you get 1 energy at the end of the day, plus the 24 you're also generating every hour. So, or 1 that you're generating every hour. To speed the creation of energy, you can either increase matter in your account by contribution and mining matter. That's the only way available today. Or you can purchase outside and put it in the system. We likely will have the ability to have a locked token purchase inside the system where you can buy matter to do boosting and things like that, but you can't withdraw it if you buy it in the system. I think that's likely how it'll work, but that's not in place yet. Generation period is 1 hour. The yield per denizen 1/24th. We've already gone over this, right? And the cap is important. It confuses a lot of people that I'm not generating more energy if they're not doing anything. It's like, well, it keeps going up every hour until you get to your cap, and then it holds. So the max amount of energy is your matter balance, the balance of matter, times N, which is the current matter to energy multiplier. We haven't talked about this, but right now it's a 1-to-1. We do know that the group that will be handling governance for these formulas will later have the opportunity to change that number so that based upon adoption, and it might be based upon something as simple as average matter balance or average active user matter balance, something like that, where you would gain more than 1 energy for every matter you have, because it's going to be very hard to get 1 matter for new users when we get a lot of adoption. It's going to be very small numbers. So we take your balance times that factor. Right now it's 1 plus 24. That's the max. The yield per hour is matter, your balance of matter over 24 times that. Again, that's 1 plus 1. You at least are going to generate 1 energy every hour to your cap. And then the current, let's see here, current energy balance is going to be your yield plus that balance with the max is cap. So simple stuff. Ask questions about that if you don't get it. It is an interesting system because we had to put it in place because of the potential scarcity of matter. Next, we hit layer ownership rights. We are at the hour 2 mark. I'll try to make it fast. All right. Okay, we'll take a break here. Brian, how do you plan on linking a mobile app to read a crypto wallet? Or will it be saved to your account and won't be needed? Right now, we don't know this for certain. Right now, we're assuming everything on the mobile app will be point-based and all crypto will be relegated to web. That is, if you go and you want to withdraw something, you will likely need to go to web, where you have Web3 integration. You can do various things with a hardware wallet, and all the things would be proper, and we won't have any of the otherwise unnecessary scrutiny of the app stores, right? We would like to be able to distribute within the app stores, and so we're going to try to keep all the crypto out of the mobile app for now, at least, until we understand better. We don't want to mess up with any terms. We're going to try to make sure all terms are handled. So that's at least the angle right now. So layer ownership rights, total supply of approximately 2.9 billion. Again, that's a Fibonacci. Precision of 2 decimals. We don't need the precision, and there's a reason for it that we'll talk about here in ownership. Network, it's an ERC20 on Ethereum. Okay, so lore are used to create layer ownership tokens, lot, or to bid on a new layer in a competition. So lot is what we talked about earlier with, let's see here, ownership of a layer comes in the form of NFT, which is lot. Okay, so in order to create lot, you have to use lore, and it's a 1-to-1 requirement. You have to have 1 lore to create 1 lot. Okay, and we'll get into how we're doing layer creation in a second here. For right now, distribution method, these things are important, so you know how to get involved, right? So we're going to do, and they're not, it's going to be an interesting thing. It's not an airdrop, but there will be 433,494,437 lore tokens awarded to existing Dragon holders on a 1-to-1 basis and locked for use within the DEN platform. I don't know what the snapshot date will be, but we'll set that soon. Basically, you'll get 1 lore for every Dragon you hold. Okay, and that's Dragon you're holding on the outside and your hardware wallet at every address. Okay, they will be locked for use within the DIN platform, so it's pure utility. You won't be able to withdraw these, and there are legal reasons for that. But you'll be able to use them to create new layers and to participate in a bunch of these other things that help some of these, especially early communities, develop. Okay, so it'll be important for early adopter stuff to make sure that you're in that group. 400, so the same number will be awarded. I think this is flipped. I think we didn't edit this yet. The same number of lore tokens will be awarded to the DIN entity for operational expenses. Okay, these two numbers are flipped, and I think we didn't get this corrected, so we will get that. And 10% of the total supply, the 297 million, will be going to the team. So we flipped that. And so the team will get 10%. DIN itself will get 433 million of the lore. 0.5% of the total lore supply, 2.9 million of the total lore supply, will be awarded to DIN beta testers. I can't remember the number. The number should be in there. I don't know why that number is there, but we'll fix that too. That 0.5% is going to beta users. Okay, the balance of the lore, which is 1.7 billion, 1.8 billion almost, will be distributed via yield farming. Okay. And 35% of lore reclaimed by burning lot will also be distributed via yield farming. So we'll get into what that means. It's basically if you create lot, so you are in a layer, you have ownership of a layer, and that layer is defunct. Let's say it's basically become worthless, and or it might be costing you to keep it running. You might say, you know what, I'm going to exit out of this. That you, and we'll talk about this in a minute, but you send the lore into the lot smart contract, you send the lot into the lot smart contract, and you burn that lot, and you will get back half of your lore that were originally used to create that lot, and the rest of the other half goes 35% to yield, and the balance to DIN. So let's see here. Layer creation. This is important too. That even, let's see here. Rolando Jimenez. When will energy, matter, and lore be released? Very soon. We don't have the calendar yet released, but we're basically getting everything. Trying to be conservative and getting everything in place. We're hoping very soon, and it's going to all roll out, and you'll know when and everything else. So. Let's see here. Community layers. There is scarcity even in the creation of layers. That is, unlike Reddit or other similar platforms where anybody in the world can go in and create a new subreddit, and as long as it's a unique name, you own it, right? But you have to build a community, and the problem is that there are hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of those. I don't know. That we've put it in place a process that lets the community get involved in deciding which layers are created and when, and who gets a piece of them. Okay, so what we do every month, and we've not done this for a while, we're going to start doing it, and it'll be every month after that. DIN will announce how many new layers will be created based upon adoption and engagement metrics, right? It could be a handful, it could be a couple dozen, depends on how big the system is. We basically create a post saying, okay, we're gonna start this again, and there will be a new user interface for this, we do believe. But one way or another, anybody can propose a new layer. Okay, you create a description, you describe the vision, the rationale for creating it. Overlap with a couple of other layers. We need this to separate some of this content that's maybe inappropriately being posted in some other layer. And everybody votes on these with lore. Okay, so you take lore and you say, I am going to put 5,000 lore onto that layer, and I see that other people have put 1,000 on it, and I say, okay, I really think that's a valuable layer. I'm going to put a bunch on it. It becomes a competitive process, But it isn't an auction. It isn't something where there's a single winner. It is everybody who committed lore. If that layer is one of the, let's say, 10 created that month, if you put lore on that layer, you know, 1 lore, 1,000,000 lore, it doesn't matter. You're going to get the same number of lot, 1-to-1, that you put lore in on it, in ownership of that layer. So you will own a piece, a proportion, based upon how much lore you commit. And let's see here. For any proposal that does not win, the lore stays in the smart contract if you've done it. The interesting thing about this that might be hard to describe is that this can happen inside a den for normal people who aren't crypto people, and it can also happen on the smart contract side, that you can literally send the lore into the smart contract and bid on a layer and be full crypto in handling that, fully decentralized. And if your proposed or your favorite layer does not win that month, the lore will stay there. You can pull it out in the meantime, or you can leave it there, and you know it's boosted already for next month. So it's kind of a thing where you're going to end up with some. They're not incumbent, but they're kind of like incumbent entries, where there's something that was already there. It's been there for 3 or 4 months, and it takes 3 or 4 months before enough people say, okay, I'll put some money in on that, right? Because everybody's leaving their lore in there. So it's interesting, and it's a competitive process. And what we found is doing this, even when we did this without lore, you know, we did it with energy. We ran through some beta test runs with this, and the ownership drives engagement. It makes those people who have a piece of that layer want, you know, first of all, they're already interested in it. Next, I have some ownership to it, and I'm responsible for it. And so they're more likely to contribute and get others to contribute and build a community, right? So it's a really interesting process. And we think that it'll also keep the growth more organic. It won't be, you know, explosion of layers and people squatting on layers. And there are a couple of other things too that we have to prevent squatting on names. You know, we talk about how the lot can be burned and you lose 50% of the lore you put in. 15% goes to den, 35% to yield farming. Okay. Next we go to business layers. Strategic layers for internal or partner use, where Den uses lore to create layers and lot are distributed per agreement, and there's, you know, either monthly charge or other, but those are for brands or for people who have a need to you know, own a layer as a business, including private layers. I mean, we have some private layers as well, where only invited people are able to view and post and everything else. Okay. Next, lot. So these are the actual layer ownership tokens, the NFT that basically ties to lore. And this actually, total supply should be not unlimited. It should be the same as lore, because you can't create a lot without a lore. Let's fix that too. Sorry, I'm catching bugs. This is good. So a lot represents a single unit tokenized ownership of a layer. Lot is non-fungible. Lot will only ever be created or converted from lore on a 1-to-1 basis. The creation of a lot assigned to a layer will lock the lore from which it is created. So lore is locked in the lot contract. Say that fast. Any lot holder can burn lot to recapture 50%. We've already talked about that. And expected to be tradable per standard interface on OpenSea. I believe that's all working. So Enrique Perdoncini asks, what is ERC 721? It's NFT standard. I think there's more than one standard. That's the one, unless I'm wrong, or unless this is not updated. That is the standard that we're using for lot. Let's see here. For non-community and business or business layers, in order to prevent squatting on valuable layer names, layer owners will be charged nominal fee payable in lore every mining period, which will increase over time if the layer is not active. So valuable content creation as evaluated by the mining process. So a layer will be given 30 periods to build an active community without charge. And this is not in place right now. So, as we're building stuff out, we're not doing this yet, but that's the full intent, to basically make it, if you want to squat on a domain because it's, your company's name or something, but you don't want to use it, then you just pay. And otherwise, somebody else might grab it, or the community might grab it, or who knows what. Now, we go then to the blocking system, and it's tokenized, but it's not a token. It's definitely not tradable outside, and it has an interesting model, but effectively limitless. You have blocking tokens per user, per subscribed layer, for use only in that particular layer, right? So if you're in the, let's say the cryptocurrency layer, let's say that there are 100 users, you get 10 blocking tokens. So you can block up to 10 users. And once you block 10 users, you can't block anymore unless you unblock someone, right? Very simple thing. But how do I see this? If enough people block that user's banned, and I think it's around a 26%. There's some number that is set for how many people need to block you before you're banned from that layer. But it's a mechanism to make it so the layer can kind of police itself a little bit with the community, without having to have hired moderators, as if possible. Not that you wouldn't anyway, but when that person is banned, the block that you placed on that person comes back to you. So let's say I blocked 10 people, one of them actually gets banned, I get that token back. So now I only have 9 blocked people. I can use that block token on somebody else that is only slightly more annoying, or less annoying. Next we have the reputation economy, where we basically track a general reputation based upon, again, the evaluation of your content across the site. So anytime you post or anytime you reply, people upvote, downvote you. That reputation can be used by layer owners to restrict access. So you want when you're in a community to not troll. You don't want, because it'll affect your ability to do things in other communities, right? Because it'll be tied to your general. And in that layer, theoretically, you can have a really good reputation everywhere, and develop a really bad reputation in one layer, just because you snuck into a layer maybe you don't fit into culturally, and you end up blocked or banned, and you end up with a bad reputation there, and you end up not being able to reply if the layer owner wants to close it down a little bit. The interesting thing that we had to do is add this site-wide reputation, because if you're new to a layer, there's no way to evaluate your reputation in my layer. So I have to look at how do you act everywhere else. And if you have, let's say, an 80% score everywhere else, I can say, okay, anybody can post with an 80% reputation, which cuts it down quite a bit, so that the riffraff can't come in and post. But maybe you can reply, right? I might open it up so you can reply, and maybe you can or can't vote even. It's a very interesting system that you can kind of game it however you want to allow new people in, to let them be evaluated inside of your layer, and then you start, after they have enough evaluation that has happened inside your layer, that is their reputation that is used for all the settings. Okay, we're almost done here. So now we're going to get into company overview, and this is really important because it's less technical, but we've seen historically how a lot of platforms have failed because there are competing factors. That you have business itself. Do we put in advertising? You have the community, who obviously we don't want ads. We just want an interface to talk to people on. And so what we're doing here is saying that we're going to have a system governance board. I mean, DEN is an entity. It has a board, it it will make business decisions on how it advertises or does various things. But all of the formulas that we've talked about and all of the things that are necessary to gauge or to meter what's going on can be gamed, right? And so all of those formulas will be the responsibility of a system governance board. So this governance board will make all decisions with regard to the system economy, all the algorithms, made up of 3 seats with an equal vote on any proposal for change. Okay, so 1 seat is appointed by the DEN entity's corporate board. Okay, that's the representation of the business on this board. 1 seat will be appointed by holders of matter, so the content creators and evaluators. But anybody who holds matter will have the ability to weigh in on who represents them. And 1 seat will be appointed by holders of lot, which is the community layer owners. Okay, so the board will determine and document a proposal process so that anyone could request or suggest changes to the system or to the formulas, and in particular the economy, and the board will interact with developers to implement those changes if they're voted, if they are approved. Board seat elections will be held annually, 2-year term limit. Replacement elections can be held anytime to replace a member resigning. Denizens are able to open a dispute against one or more of the city board members for an impeachment even. What fun. And the first election is expected in Q1 of next year, 2021. We're going to do it earlier, but we think this would probably be more appropriate so we can get all the tokens in place, get everybody familiar with the system, and have a proper interface to do all of this stuff. So gives us some good time, and probably also time to develop some of the process itself on how we do how people can do proposals. We assume it'll be inside a den, things like that, right? So monetization and operations. The entity den will use its share of mind, matter, and lore to monetize operations. Pay for advertisements, pay for potentially even pay for content, pay for whatever we need to pay for. We'll also sell lore and matter directly to businesses, brands, and creators for the creation of business layers, and also so that those businesses or brands can boost content within the system. Right. So there is some monetization piece in there. Adoption incentives. Okay. So it's our intent to set, when I say our, it is the DEN entity's intent to set aside a portion of equity in the company for sweat equity based incentive plan, where participation will be rewarded with actual equity in the company. So basically, if you produce good content, if you are a good evaluator of content, or you build really good communities that produce a lot of matter, there will be equity in there, and it's a measure of effort in a sweat equity process. And it'll be in a separate document because we want to make sure it's fully legally warranted, approved, everything else inside the document. We don't want to push anything out right now that we'd have to change later. So just know this is coming, and it should be extremely, in my opinion, extremely valuable, primarily for early adoption, because what it would mean is anybody with a good existing community, or anyone who knows that they're able to produce really good content, will post it in Den instead of in Medium. They'll come in and create a layer here instead of a subreddit or some other other channel, that they'll bring their people in, and the participation is what will be rewarded. So this is very much a goal to get early adopters into the system as owners, which, imagine if you were a producer of great video content on YouTube in the early days, and you actually got a piece of the company when they sold to Google, right? I mean, that's kind of the take on this that we want out there, that ownership is available, and all it amounts to is how much effort you put in, and building out content and adoption. So that's everything. Again, this is draft. It's version 0.93. And we'll be posting stuff in the coming days and weeks. We're rolling out a lot of stuff really fast, including DIN Mobile, the tokens, obviously, the DeFi components. And by the way, we did not mention DeFi components in here very much, except to say that part of the Matter Boost will go to that world. Lore will go to that world, and the purely decentralized governance that as the DeFi world will be how lore is used outside of DIN. So lore inside of DIN is to create layers and to do other things directly as a pure utility. But lore outside is used for direct interactions with smart contract, as well as to participate in a decentralized governance model for the yield system, and how everything works over there in Uniswap, and wherever else, but definitely in Uniswap. So that'll be an interesting thing. Brian, this is and in fact I intended to bring this up. Thank you. Brian Schmicker asks, will you guys prevent multiple user accounts? Sorry, this bothers me, LOL. I totally agree. There will obviously be a couple of interesting things for identity, and we didn't cover them here because we didn't want to make it more confusing for the time period. We wanted to keep it, well, as simple as we could. That there will definitely be a factor component built in. Okay, so you're going to have decentralized identity built in. Now that factor will be very important to say not expose all of your information, but still prove who you are. It will also be, how do I say, it will be the mechanism through which we actually do what the full vision is, which is to actually cryptographically sign every post. I mean, right now the posts are signed by the system, and they're put on chain, and they end up secured all the way to Bitcoin and Ethereum Classic, and anything else we're doing. But right now the user is not signing them themselves with their own keys. And so we're going to use Factor, because Factor lets you have derived keys that are local to your browser and mobile and everything else. And Factor will allow us to either optionally or hopefully, ideally, just sign every message that you post or reply. And I guess even votes, that they would be signed by that key, which is a known denizen with a certain amount of exposed identity, user name, user avatar, flag, things like this. We didn't go over flag either. We have a bunch of really interesting components that attack the identity issue for when people are impersonating others. That we have a lot of really interesting things to prevent the impersonation problem, and that's going to be the next phase. We also, I should say, have a solution for anonymous accounts. And that is that there will be a cost involved where to produce an anonymous account from your factor, where if in the future you want to prove that really was you can, but otherwise there's no way for anyone else to tie it to your identity. That we have even ways to tie in time, Dragonchain time to it for anonymous accounts. But it'll be great because we can actually increase the cost of having multiple anonymous accounts, so there's some limit. You just don't have thousands of anonymous accounts. And we likely will have settings in a layer to say my layer only allows identified accounts, or only allows anonymous accounts, or takes a mix, right? Okay, Spansel asks, can we reveal some of the plans to bring adoption to DIN? Yes, we have obviously this this huge adoption incentive for the creation of content, for participating, I should say, for contributing in any way to the system, you're going to get equity. That's huge. It'll be outlined in more detail later. Another is the fact that you will actually be rewarded for quality content without worrying about, oh, is this advertising? I don't have to have a site and put the content that I want to provide, but then figure out how to use an ad system to monetize everything, which annoys all my users also. So the fact that you're getting matter for coming and getting involved in fact, it's interesting because it's not just for content creators. It would be people running communities, people evaluating, just voting, or people writing. That's an incentive plan. We also have, obviously, some videos going out, some of which will be more in, like the one that started the show off with, which is more of an explainer type video. But some of them will be more advertising, like a commercial, and those will be going out, and we think that some of them will be running in the upcoming open source money distributions as an example, so they should get wide audience, and particularly Den itself, for at least one of the audiences that is planned, that we should know about pretty soon, that Den itself and the philosophy and the ethos of Den is actually going to be very well placed for one of these groups. So that's huge, and hopefully it'll hit a lot of people outside of crypto Twitter and outside of crypto itself, because that's the main goal. The other is SEO. That is, we do have a lot of things that we are cooking into the system for the crawlers, so that our search engine optimization is pretty well hit, and that's so that a normal user who searches for, X, Y, or Z will potentially hit an article or even a reply inside a Den, and they'll go there, and there you go. So, and there are ways even that people could game the system to how do I say? And there, well, if you remember early on, something we don't have built yet, but is the engagement metric or the engagement role, that it'll basically be incentivizing them to gain outside systems to get adoption to Den, right? And that's kind of the point. So in all these cases, we're using blockchain and crypto for anti-censorship things, for historical preservation, archival purposes, but also to incentivize the people to post and find and bring the best content possible for the people that are there just to read it, right? That's the main point. So that's everything. Oh, here's we have one more question. Let's see here. It would be interesting if you announce a date for dragons to be held in a personal wallet before a set time, and the ones not claimed by another date are moved to a secondary airdrop round or something. We've thought about that. It's entirely possible, and right now, and it's nice because it's not an airdrop, because they are locked. They are pure utility. You can't do any things that the regulators don't like with them in this case, and we don't say the intent was originally that they would go, and maybe that is a good idea. Maybe we can consider that, because the intent was they would go to all the addresses, and no matter when you come in, they're going to be there, right? And they'll be just there forever. But it isn't horrible to say maybe they go one-to-one to dragon holders, and after a certain time, if somebody never comes in and collect, because there are a lot of people with dust. There are a lot of accounts that have less than a single dragon even, that maybe all of those end up getting resent to all of the current active for a certain period of time, proportionally. I don't know. We'll have to figure it out. For the beginning, I just wanted to keep it simple. So, okay, so now we're done with the white paper. I'm going to put this at the top, and we'll just go through AMAs now. If I need to, I can go to this section. But Enrique Perdoncini, also Brazil. This is the point of my question before. If I downvote by accident, but then I upvote by 21, will my my downvote will count in the formula. Yes, your downvote. And I'm trying to remember. I don't know for uniqueness if you are counted as a single voter and which side you'd be counted in. That's a question I'd have to ask the devs. But the point is that you would be, the post would end up getting 20. You would be getting 20 for the evaluation of your, for the mining evaluation. But you've canceled out that -1, and you end up voting 20 up. So generally it. Brian, how are unique users determined? Just different usernames? Unique users, if you're talking system-wide, it would be actual accounts. If you're talking for any of the formulas, it is actual accounts. So it is if I vote on something up and you vote on something down, that's 2 unique voters and 1 unique up voter, 1 unique down voter for all the formulas we used. Let's see. Do we have other questions? Is that it? That's it. Okay, so watch it again. Feel free to ask more questions. Definitely in either Telegram or more appropriately Den. And we did post a form for feedback. So you have the PDF available. Review the PDF. I think the form asks you, what page it's on and what section and things like that. And there's some free form where you can just say, oh, you misspelled something, or you guys are stupid, this would lead to X, and you really want Y. Anything goes. Give us good feedback, and we'll be releasing. In fact, we have some mistakes or some updates that need to be made, just from this review that we found. So we'll be releasing versions as we go, and hopefully we'll have a calendar out soon, a schedule for how things are rolling out. I mean, the main point is that we're going to likely roll out all the tokens at once. Ideally, we'll roll mobile app out at the same time, and any other thing else, right? So, one last question from Lore Imprenditore, I think. Private layers. Yes, if you come as a business, as an example, you get an enterprise account. You pay per period, which ends up with a monthly. We would charge monthly, invoice monthly, whatever else, and you can have a private layer. And the interesting thing about private layers, we did some experimentation, that there is a scarcity of energy. Okay, that is, if you vote on something in a private layer, it does reduce the energy that you have in your balance. Okay, but the spending of energy in posts, replies, or voting has no bearing on any mining. That is, no private layer mines matter. No one posting to a private layer, great content, mines any matter. It's private, and there would be no way to be transparent about how great this post was and how many people voted on it. So, private layers also have a lot of full edit, and it's a little simpler to use, but it's just a forum for your business or project that is on chain and persisted. So that's a private layer. And we have a few, and there are some improvements that need to be made, but it's a working system. So also coming would be, and we don't know yet, my assumption right now is it will be in mobile first, that the Den mobile will have direct message and group chat available. And at first it'll be stored as plain text, but it will later be peer-to-peer encrypted, even peer-to-group, peer-to-peer encrypted. So that'll be interesting and fun and useful, and it'll hopefully let us get our team off of Slack. But anyway, and we'll start pulling stuff from Dragonchain and Den off of Telegram as well. Once a lot of this stuff is built in. But there we go. That's everything. I think no more questions. Thanks for joining. Sorry it took so long. That was an hour 40. My gosh. Apologies for that. But hopefully good info. and not too redundant. Make sure you you like, comment, and subscribe, and watch us again next Tuesday, right? Thanks so much.
Roles of a denizen. A content creator is a user that creates posts and is rewarded based on the quality of their content. A content evaluator is a user that helps assess the quality of content and enforces community standards. The evaluator is effectively taking part in a marketplace to curate content and is rewarded for early evaluation. A content consumer is a user that wishes to find and consume the most valuable content in a given subject area or within a community. A lair owner is a person holding tokenized ownership of all or part of a community lair. Owners are rewarded with a portion of all mining activity happening within their lair. Owners are incentivized to build the best community of content creators and evaluators.